Cutting large pieces of stock on the table saw can be troublesome because the stock wants to move away from the fence when you're trying to do this by yourself. I've got a solution for that today. Let me show you. Hey, I'm Matt. Today I want to show you the best upgrade I've made to my table saw yet. When cutting large pieces of plywood, MDF, or even sometimes smaller pieces, when you're pushing the piece through the cut, a lot of times you'll start seeing or have trouble holding that piece against the fence flat through the entire cut. In previous videos I've made, when I was watching them back, I noticed that a lot of times that piece would move away from the fence, and that bothered me. And the reason it bothers me is that's a kickback hazard for number one, and number two, it makes your cuts and your pieces inaccurate. They're not going to be precise. We have a very simple way to fix that. Let me show you. I recently worked in the shop with a friend of mine, Already Woodworks, and he had these Jessem stock guides installed on his table saw. Let me show you what they'll do. I'll put a link to these stock guides in the description below if you want to check them out for yourself. Now, the way these Jessem guides work is they mount onto your table saw fence, and then they actually pull the material into the fence. The rail that this thing mounts on is like an extruded aluminum. I'm not sure what it is. It's basically like it's a really stiff aluminum bar that has a T-track in it. They recommend you put it on your fence, drill holes in there, and then screw it to that. I'm not a fan of that, and there's a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to drill into a $200 fence that I may or may not have to replace because I don't like that idea. Also, there's a lot of jigs and things that you can build and make for these things that if you have this screwed into it, it's going to be in the way. I'm going to show you all the features and everything this thing can do, and then after that, I will show you how I made a jig that makes these removable from the fence so you don't screw into your fence and ruin that. If you want to see how I made the jig, stay tuned. So it doesn't matter if you put these on a jig or mount them to your fence. They just slide into the T-slot on the track, and then you lock them down in place. First thing you'll need to do is adjust the angle that these are going to be at, and the way you do that, there's 2 bolts on each arm that you're going to take out with the supplied Allen key. Then you can adjust those. They slide on the track itself. You want that to be about a 30-degree angle from here. You can see that if you don't adjust them, they're almost at a 90-degree angle on this saw stop fence. Even if it was let down another 3/4 of an inch, I don't think it would be enough to get that 30-degree angle you want, so you're going to need to adjust those. For me, it's going to be in the last set of holes. What I really love about these when I was using them or saw them used on my friend's table saw was how fast and easy they are to set up. So all I gotta do is lock in my magnets. That's gonna lock that onto the fence. It's not gonna go anywhere. All you have to do to adjust it is loosen the knob on top. You're gonna let it fall down and touch this piece here. This piece here is a little bit higher than the wheel itself. So when you adjust it right there, it's automatically adjusted for this stock when it starts going through there. That raising up of that piece you see is actually on purpose because it's spring loaded. So it's gonna raise it up just a little bit. That means it's putting tension down. And because this wheel is turned at a 5-degree angle, it's going to keep pressure against that fence. That's going to keep your wood from walking away from the blade and giving you an accurate cut every time. It's like having another set of hands with you on the table saw, constantly holding, actually 2 sets of hands, one pushing that way, one pushing down while you push straight through the cut. Another great feature of these guides is the fact that these wheels that are on here only turn when it's going this way. What does that do? Well, that helps prevent kickback. It's not going to stop it, but it does give you a little added protection from the kickback. One thing to keep in mind when setting these up is these are movable, so they will slide forward and back to adjust to where you need them. You want this back one or the one closest to you, I guess it will be the front one, the one closest to you on this side of the blade, not at the blade, but on the back side of the blade. This back one, you want it on the back side of the blade, and you want to make sure that it is not on the left side of the blade. If it's on that left side of the blade, we'll pretend we're going through the blade. This wheel, if it's on the left side of the blade, what that's going to do is cause a pinch and possible kickback, because then it's going to, the piece that's already cut, it's going to be pushing on that, and you don't want that. Another great thing about these guides is how fast they are to set up. I showed you how you can set it for this 8/4 material. Say I'll make a few cuts of this, and then I want to switch over to 1/4-inch plywood. It's the same setup. You're just going to bump it out, and you're ready to go. Before I finish telling you all about the Jessem guys, let me tell you about our website, 731woodworks.com/store. We have tons of different build plans available, from furniture, shop projects, and more. Go check it out. If you use the code GUIDE, we'll give you 20% off any order. The reason I like these so much is you can see if I'm starting out, even if this is really exaggerated, but if I'm starting out away from the fence, then if I'm pushing straight pressure back here, you're gonna see it, like I'm pushing with one finger, it's going to auto align to the fence. Like how awesome is that? And then it's also keeping that pressure against the fence all the way through the cut. And the reason you'd want to use, you can just use the back one obviously, but the reason you'd want to use this other one also is so that after it goes through the cut, you're getting that pressure going that way as well. So I extended those all the way out to begin with, and that was not right. What I did was I moved them back 2 holes, and it significantly reduced or increased the amount of resistance you get when you're pulling back. And you have to really pull, like really pull to get any resistance or to get any movement coming back. So just make sure they're adjusted right. Guess what I'm getting at. Now, what table saws will this actually work on? Now, several. I would assume the saw stop, obviously, because it's what I've got, but they should also work on, say, the Delta or the rigid style table saws that I've had before. And Jessem actually recommends that you not use these on portable table saws. However, I think you could probably build a jig somehow if your fence was long enough to be able to mount these solid. Now, they have to be solid. You don't want it moving or anything like that, or it defeats the purpose. Now, what are the limitations of these? Obviously, it's only, you know, a certain amount of saws you can use these on, depending on the fence style you have and if you can build a jig for them. Also, another limitation that I found that it is a real limitation. Let me show you. I don't usually push stick on the left side of the cut ever. It's usually always on the right side. And you can see here, this guide rail is in the way. This really isn't made for the more narrow stock. This is really made for larger stock or wide sheets of plywood, things like that. That's where it's really gonna shine. If you're gonna cut wider pieces, it's best just to get a scrap piece to adjust these to where you want them. Let's cut some. It just pushes you right to it. That's awesome. Now, if I have to stop and reconfigure, I don't have to worry about anything moving like I used to. Smooth as butter. Now you see, it's like silky smooth all the way down through there. No saw marks, no gouging, anything like that. Even me switching positions. So we'll try it one more time on a wider cut. So this is a pretty wide cut. Oh man, no. That was a whole bucket of mineral oil. Yeah, that's used to be mineral oil in that bucket. Wide cut. So you can see I stopped and started that wider cut on purpose just to kind of put different pressures at different places just to see if I was going to get any different results. So here's the results. Zero saw marks on that, even changing positions, different pressure from different areas of the wide cut. I guess the only thing now left to do is cut a very long piece. In my opinion, one of the most difficult cuts to make by yourself in a wood shop is cutting a large piece of plywood on your table saw, especially a full sheet. The reason this is so difficult is because of how awkward this is. You have to hold the thing out here, push pressure that way, try to guide it through the blade without messing up too bad. These longer cuts is usually where I get that saw marks or those gouges that you see sometimes when you're cutting those long ones, and this one is perfect. Talking about taking your accuracy up to another level on table saw cuts using those, especially when using sheet goods. Like, this is a game changer for a table saw. It's just, they work really well. I wish Jessem would figure out a way that you didn't have to either make a jig or screw into your fence. Thankfully, I was able to make a jig, but it does come at a higher cost because now you've got to buy those mag switches, which aren't very cheap. You have to buy those plus the guide itself, which adds to the cost. So it's a trade-off there if you really want to add that precision. That's really my only gripe. One thing to note, if you do mount this directly to your fence, you should be able to loosen these top screws. These will slide all the way out, and then these aren't in your way anymore. You can just put those to the side, and then you can just reinstall them at any time. One thing to clarify is they don't get in the way as far as just being on here. So you can actually leave them attached if you wanted to. The only time they're going to get in the way is if you had another jig or something you wanted to put on top of your fence. 80–90% of the time, you're probably just going to leave them on the table saw fence. It doesn't make it slide any different, and they absolutely do not get in the way as far as normal cutting activities. So mine will probably stay there unless I just don't need it. I will say this about the overall build quality of this system. It does cost a lot. It is no doubt. It is an expensive piece of equipment to add to your table saw. I just believe that it's worth its value. I purchased this myself. Jessem doesn't even know my name. So once I saw them in action, I knew that I want them. Everything on this thing is metal, aluminum, except the little urethane wheels, which provide that grippy feel, so they grip that material better. The knobs are all textured. They have a knurling. If you know what a barbell knurl feels like, they feel like that. And everything's just well made. If you like content like that, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon next to it so you get notified of all the new content we've got coming. Tell you what, I'll get plans made for this from H2 Wood Shop, who makes our plans, and I'll give them away to you for free if you're interested, because it's such a simple jig. So all you need is an 1 5/8 Forstner bit. I used a 1-inch hole here just to hang it with, but you could also drill the 1 5/8 there. The 1 5/8 drill bit will drill the holes for the mag switches. In the mag switches, you'll need 250-pound mag switches. I also drop links to those in the description if you're interested. And then you're going to just screw those in with some short screws about 1 inch long. To mount the rail onto this piece of plywood, you'll just need 8 screws that are about 3/4 of an inch long. Make sure they're good wood screws. Just don't over tighten them because you don't want to strip it. As far as the layout, this thing is about 37 inches long and it's just shy of 3 inches wide. It just depends on what it's going to take to fit on your specific fence. And the placement of these holes isn't all that specific. If you want to kind of guess that, you're just going to lay that rail on there. Otherwise, I'll have plans that show you exactly where I drilled the holes on this one. Again, this design comes from All Red Woodworks. He shared with me his dimensions, and I just built them straight off of that. One thing to note is, if you're using 3/4 inch plywood, the bottom of that mag switch is going to protrude. It's going to be proud, just a smidgen, maybe less than 1/16 of an inch. Don't worry about that, that's fine, because it's going to lock down onto your table saw fence when you activate that switch. As far as storage goes, we got that hole there. You can just drive a peg in or a nail or a screw in something and hang it from that. Or, it is metal, or magnets we've put in there. It'll pretty much mag switch to any metal and stay there. This is one of the best upgrades I've made to my table saw yet. Well, with the exception of maybe my crosscut sled, the safer crosscut sled. Go watch that video right there to teach you how to make that sled. Click in the box to get you the big old virtual fist bump. Also, another one of my favorite videos right there.